What's up, guys? I hope you're all doing well. If you just watched that last video, the last streamer video, or if you watched it a week ago or however long ago, thank you for coming back. We're going to dive right into this next part of this Dreamer series. And in this series, we've been talking about dreams, or rather our goals and aspirations. We've been talking about the story of Joseph as well. The story of Joseph really is integral to this series. We talked about how if you want to see your dreams come true, you must first dream. You must first dream. You must dwell on your dreams. You must never give up on your dreams. That's the first thing we talked about. And then in the last video, we talked about to see your dreams come true, you must live a life of honesty. Now, in today's video, what we'll be talking about is to see your dreams come true, you must live a disciplined life. You must live a disciplined life. In Genesis chapter 37, we talked about Genesis chapter 37 roughly a month ago, pretty much close to when we started this series. We read about Joseph dreaming two dreams in which his older brothers and parents came to him as their leader. 6 chapters later, in Genesis chapter 42, we find all of Joseph's dreams coming true. But this would have never happened if Joseph had not determined his own heart to remain disciplined. And if you want to see your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations come true, you must determine to remain disciplined. But what does disciplined look like? Well, for Joseph, we see him living a disciplined life by doing several things. The first thing, we see Joseph rejecting temptation. Last video, we were reminded of how Joseph was tempted by his master's wife to come sleep with her. The circumstances were right there for sin. No one was around. Potiphar's wife wanted this to happen. No one would find out. Yet Joseph refused, and he ran from temptation. Joseph knew that being disciplined meant rejecting temptation. The same is true for us today. We must reject temptation. That sin that Satan keeps tempting you with, run from it. Run from that sin. Whatever sin you find yourself struggling with, refuse to put yourself in a position where you could fall. Don't sit at the same lunch table with the friends who gossip. I know this doesn't apply to you now that you're quarantined, but keep that in mind. Delete the app that's taking up your devotional time. Turn off the game that always causes you to yell at your parents. These are things that can be added into your life. You need to avoid temptation. Joseph chose to be disciplined by avoiding temptation, and we see that Joseph takes on responsibility. He takes on responsibility. It didn't matter what position Joseph was put into. He always rose to the occasion. He was the most faithful servant at Potiphar's house. He was the most trusted prisoner in the prison. He was the wisest ruler of all of Egypt. He always took on responsibility. Whatever situation you find yourself in, rise to the occasion. Take on responsibility. Become a leader in a group. Be a helping hand around the house with chores. That definitely applies to you now that you have a lot more time. Be sure to do your chores. Help out mom and dad. Look for ways you can help your teacher. Find something that is missing in your school and fill that vacancy. One of the biggest struggles that our generation has is taking on responsibility. We wait to get a job. We push off getting married and choose to move in together. We struggle to determine our life goal. Today, decide that you will be someone who accepts responsibility and rises to the occasion. The third thing we see Joseph do, we see Joseph taking care of himself. This is an important one. Joseph takes care of himself. If you remember in the last video, how the Bible said that Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. Well, this teaches us that Joseph was disciplined in taking care of himself. The Bible says that as Christians, our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. To live a disciplined life, it is essential that we take care of ourselves. It's important that we are clean, that we eat well, that we exercise. Especially now, we definitely have the time to do a lot of this stuff. And also to get a full night of sleep so that we can take care of the bodies that God has given us. Joseph was disciplined by avoiding temptation, taking on responsibility, taking care of himself, and also we see Joseph following through. Whatever Joseph was asked to do or expected to do, he always did it. He always followed through, whether it was going to check on his brothers in the field or taking care of the house of Potiphar. He always followed through. We could each take this lesson from Joseph and make it a priority in our life. A disciplined person always does what they say they are going to do. Follow through with the things you told your mom and dad that you would do. Follow through with your leadership commitments in church. Follow through with your job in your workplace. Follow through with your commitments in school. Follow through with them. Joseph lived a disciplined life in every way. He was the perfect example of a disciplined man. He had avoided temptation. He had always taken on extra responsibilities. He took care of his body. He always followed through. And yet in Genesis chapter 39 and 40, we see Joseph thrown into prison for a crime that he didn't commit. It appeared that he had done everything he could have done, and he still didn't get to see his dreams come true. Maybe you felt like that before. Like you had done everything you could do, and it still didn't work out. Like you had given it everything you had and still turned up empty. Why does that happen to us? Why did that happen to Joseph? What kind of lesson does that teach? Well, Joseph is sitting in his jail cell. And through his life of discipline, through his circumstances, we learn two vital lessons through Joseph. First lesson is a disciplined person is not driven by deadlines. We're going to look at Genesis chapter 40, verses 1 through 8. So this is what it says. Some time after this, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them. They continued for some time in custody. And one night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison. They both dreamed, each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." So then the cupbearer tells Joseph his dream. He says, "I saw a vine in front of me with 3 branches. It budded, and blossoms came out of it with grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into his hand, and handed him the cup." And then Joseph says, "Here's what your dream means. In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you to your position as his cupbearer. When you get out, I only ask that you help me get out as well. Tell Pharaoh that I do not deserve to be in here." The baker saw how this whole dream thing worked, how it worked out for the cupbearer. So he tells Joseph his dream too. The baker tells Joseph his dream. He says, "In my dream, I had 3 cake baskets on my head. In the top basket, I had a lot of food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating the food out of my basket." And then Joseph replied, "Here's what your dream means. In 3 days, Pharaoh will hang you, and the birds will eat the flesh from your body." And then 3 days later, both of those dreams came true. The baker was hung, and the cupbearer was given his job back. It was finally time for Joseph to get out and go back to his family. It was finally time to see his dreams come true. But then, Genesis chapter 40, verse 23, and Genesis chapter 41, verse 1 says this: Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him after 2 whole years. For 2 years, Joseph was forgotten about. For 2 years, he was still in his struggle. But for 2 years, Joseph remained faithful. He never gave up hope. He remained disciplined. He was not driven by a deadline. Do not set your focus on a deadline. Focus on the one who makes your dreams come true. Focus on Jesus. You just keep being faithful. You keep being disciplined. God will take care of the rest. A second lesson that can be drawn from this story of Joseph is a disciplined person isn't defined by difficulties. A disciplined person is not defined by difficulties. Joseph is sitting in his jail cell, perhaps a little confused on how he got there, perhaps disappointed to find himself there. And yet Joseph doesn't let this struggle define him. He keeps living that disciplined life. And God, once again, sees him through. He remains faithful even in difficulty. Today, whatever difficulty you find yourself in, it doesn't have to define you. You can still see your dreams come true. Not to get sidetracked, but have you ever done one of these puzzles right here? Have you ever gotten confused on just a single piece? On just a single piece. Now, this is from a pre-K puzzle, but on a single piece of one of these type of puzzles. Have you ever gotten confused on a single piece like this? Like you search through the whole puzzle just to find where the single piece will fit. Well, the thing is, your life is not defined by a single piece of the puzzle. Your life is not a picture of struggle. Your life is not a picture of difficulty. Struggle and difficulty are just pieces of the puzzle. And this phase of your life is one piece of a much larger picture of victory and of hope and of seeing your dreams come true. To see your dreams come true in your life, you cannot let difficulties define you. A man named Eric Wainmayer was born with a disease called retinoschisis. And by the time he was 13, he was completely blind. Things that were once easy now seemed impossible for Eric. But that didn't keep Eric from dreaming. He wanted to do something that few could do. In May of 2001, his dreams came true as he did something that only 150 people do per year, none of whom have ever been blind. Eric reached the top of Mount Everest. That was his dream. He refused to let his peace of struggle determine his life's picture. You can see your dream come true, but you must remain disciplined. You must remain disciplined if you want to see your dreams come true. You cannot be driven by deadlines. You cannot be defined by difficulty. That's the end of the lesson today. Let's close out in prayer real quick. Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us again gather here today, even though we are not physically in this same room. I'm glad that these students and these parents, they're able to be with each other during this time, Lord, to grow stronger in their faith, to grow stronger with each other and with you, Lord. Allow us to take full advantage of this, Lord. Allow us to see you through all of this, to see you move through the actions of people, and allow us to take that in and allow it to affect how we act in this society, Lord. In this temporary time, allow us to still be the shining lights that you call us to be, Lord. that even though we aren't really meeting together right now, Lord, allow us to still be that shining light through social media, through text, whatever it may be, Lord. Allow us to still shine. Allow us to stay true to who we are, Lord, who we are with you. Ask all this in your name. Amen. Thank you again for watching this lesson series. We'll hit you back with another one. Take care.